Underneath the picturesque appeal of a tourist's haven lies a stark, gripping story of the Okinawan people. Their struggle for recognition mirrors the plight of Japan's Ainu. Yet, while the Ainu found their voice, the indigenous Okinawans waited in the shadows, unheard. Okinawa, often celebrated for its remarkable longevity, hides a darker reality. The island's widespread alcohol dependence isn't simply a habit, it's a distressing escape from a past and present soaked in suffering and loss. The year 2024 began with a momentous decision that sent shockwaves across Okinawa. On January 10th, despite fierce local opposition, the Japanese government began the construction of a major U.S. military base within the prefecture. This bold move, overshadowing the island's serenity, signaled Japan's firm authority over this idyllic paradise. To truly understand the depths of Okinawa's current dilemma, we must dig deep into its celebrated past. In the 1800s, the island, then known as Luchu, was a highly respected independent entity. Global powers such as the US, China, France, and the Netherlands recognized its sovereignty, engaging in treaties with it. Rich in culture and wealth, Okinawa was a hub of international relations, trading with neighboring giants like China and Korea. Its skills in diplomacy and commerce were so remarkable that poverty was virtually unknown. The world marveled at how a small island nation could forge such a strong, healthy society. However, 1879 marked a chilling transformation. Japan, now strengthened by a modernized Western-style military, occupied Okinawa. This marked the end of its freedom, as it was consumed into Japan's expanding empire. As the shadow of the Second World War appeared, even darker times awaited Okinawa. Faced with the inevitability of defeat, Japan made a tormenting decision. Okinawa was to become a human shield to safeguard the mainland. The Battle of Okinawa in 1945 was a horrific episode, wiping out nearly a third of the local population in just 3 months. The Okinawans suffered brutalities from both the Allied forces and Japanese soldiers, with the latter specifically targeting those speaking their native language or showing a desire for independence. These horrific acts, often excluded from Japanese history books in an attempt to bury their crimes against humanity, continue to haunt the native people. These stories are whispered from one generation to the next. After the war, while many nations celebrated their newfound freedom, Okinawa's fate was different. Instead of gaining independence, it was handed over to the United States as a bargain chip, becoming a strategic pawn in a grand geopolitical game. For 27 years, the U.S. ruled over Okinawa. Then, on May 15, 1972, the Okinawa Reversion Agreement was enacted. This did not signal freedom for Okinawa. Instead, it marked a transition from American to Japanese control. Okinawa continued to be a political pawn, trapped between the interests of military superpowers. Today, the grim difference within Okinawa's islands is as dramatic as ever, with the indigenous voices still struggling to break through the silence. The mainstream media, focusing primarily on the perspectives of Japanese mainlanders and their Okinawan loyalists, biases and twists the global understanding of Okinawa, its inhabitants, and their rich culture. Okinawa is a world apart from Japan in its cultural essence, historical roots, and even its geographical landscape. The islands possess a unique language, distinct musical traditions, exclusive culinary delights, and customs unseen on the mainland. Once a symbol of wealth and cultural identity, Okinawa now grapples with leading Japan in a less desirable category: the highest poverty rates, with a 30% rate of child poverty. This ugly reality casts a shadow over the paradise-like archipelago. Despite hosting an overwhelming 8.22 million tourists in 2023, the anticipated economic boom has been an illusion. Opposite to expectations of thriving local businesses and fair wages, the reality is completely different. The glitz and glamour, so apparent to tourists from across the globe, are monopolized by large corporations and luxurious resorts, which hoard the profits instead of investing in the local community and its enchanting surroundings. Caught in a relentless struggle, the Okinawans find themselves trapped between wealthy tourists and corporate greed. The presence of U.S. military bases further complicates the economic landscape, creating nightmares for the indigenous people similar to those faced by Aboriginal communities in almost every part of the world, especially North America. Housing costs near these bases have skyrocketed, pushing local families away from their ancestral lands. Despite these challenges, a new fear materializes over the Okinawans: the potential of being thrust into another conflict amid escalating tensions between China and the U.S. With 70% of Japan's military bases on their islands, Okinawa, once again, finds itself an unwilling strategic pawn, a paradise transformed into a militarized zone by unwelcome bases that are ironically meant to provide security. Far from being a blessing, the presence of these bases has, since their inception, been overshadowed by a continuing problem of crime. For instance, in March 2017, a distressing incident occurred in Kitanakagusku village, Okinawa, Japan, involving a 23-year-old U.S. sailor. The sailor, in a public act of indecency, caused alarm among the local residents and shoppers at a crowded mall. His behavior, which included inappropriate exposure and disturbing actions toward women and drivers, lasted for about half an hour. A witness alerted the mall's security, who, using CCTV cameras, located the sailor and informed the local police. However, the sailor left the scene in his car before the police could apprehend him. The car's Y license plate, indicative of U.S. military affiliation in Japan, helped the police quickly identify him as a U.S. Navy Petty Officer Second Class, stationed at Kadena Air Base. Upon being questioned by police and NCIS agents, the sailor confessed to his actions, including similar past incidents at the same location. The event left witnesses deeply unsettled, with reports of the sailor's pursuit and the fear and disgust it provoked among the victims. The severity of his actions was highlighted by the strong reactions of those who witnessed them, with calls for significant repercussions. However, the handling of the case deviated from expectations. Although Japanese prosecutors had the option to claim jurisdiction over the offense, they allowed the U.S. military to take over. The court-martial, convened 9 months later, resulted in the sailor pleading guilty to indecent exposure. He received a sentence of 90 days confinement and a bad conduct discharge, but a pretrial agreement reduced his confinement to 30 days, and he was allowed to leave the military through administrative separation. The resolution of the case, particularly the absence of registration on an offender registry, stressed the complexities and sensitivities in dealing with offenses involving U.S. service members abroad. Another chilling incident in April 2020 at the Marine Corps Air Station Futenma in Okinawa draws attention to this grim reality that the Okinawans face every day. A routine barbecue escalated into a disaster when 60,000 gallons of firefighting foam loaded with hazardous PFAS chemicals spilled into the environment. These forever chemicals, notorious for their never-ending continuation and links to health issues like cancer and liver damage, leaked through the streets and water systems. By 2022, the levels of PFAS in Okinawa's water had risen to 42 times higher than Japan's safety standards, endangering the health of approximately 450,000 people, a third of the island's population. This incident, once unimaginable in Okinawa, also highlights the intense and ongoing struggles of its people, battling against the tides of both external and internal forces. The transformation of Okinawa's once pristine environment into a scene of devastation is a tale that chills to the bone. The clear waters have been tainted, now murky pools of pollution. Also, the constant roar of military planes shatters the tranquility of this postcard-perfect island, contributing to an ever-growing discord of noise pollution. Furthermore, endless construction activities ravage the land and waters, while the non-stop felling of forests further assaults the island's fragile ecosystem. Within this ecological nightmare, the construction of a new U.S. military base on Okinawa emerges like a dark cloud. This project threatens to decimate the island's delicate marine life, including its coral reefs and unique species, such as the beloved Okinawa dugong. It risks destroying ancestral burial sites of the Rookwoan people and worsening the already severe pollution and contamination issues. The indigenous Ryukyu Okinawans, along with other locals, view this development with horror, seeing it as yet another catastrophe befalling their land and health. Their pleas for mercy, rumbling across the island, fall on deaf ears as the Japanese government turns a blind eye to their suffering. The harsh reality under Japanese rule is truly unmistakable. The Okinawans are constantly trapped in this web of discrimination and injustice. A staggering 6,000 crimes, including robbery, SA, and taking people's lives, have been committed by U.S. troops and their families in Okinawa between 1972 and 2019. Traffic accidents involving the U.S. military have resulted in over 4,000 casualties. The skies above Okinawa have witnessed multiple crashes and emergency landings by U.S. military aircraft. Adding insult to injury, Okinawa has been the epicenter of Japan's sixth wave of the virus, largely due to U.S. troops being excused from quarantine protocols upon entry to the island. The Japanese government's response to the U.S. troops' misdeeds in Okinawa has been nothing short of weak, limited to plain verbal expressions of regret and a faint hope that such incidents will not recur. This ongoing narrative has ignited a firestorm of public outrage. On March 14, 2022, a sea of protesters, united in their cause, flooded the streets in a massive rally organized by the Okinawa Peace Movement Center. This was a cry for justice, a desperate cry for help, ringing across the nation. With Japan turning its back, the Okinawans looked to the UN as their beacon of hope, seeking to engage with Japanese leaders and urging the US to set right the chemical catastrophe and provide clean water to those affected. This plea goes way beyond environmental and cultural preservation. It's a battle for dignity, acknowledgement, and the fundamental right to shape their own destiny. In 2023, a crucial turning point happened in the Okinawans' tough journey toward justice. At the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, the indigenous Okinawans made an urgent appeal. Their demands were clear and distressing. Halt the construction of the new base, close all 32 U.S. bases on Okinawa, release the military's groundwater test results, and acknowledge their rights as indigenous people, a recognition Japan has stubbornly denied despite UN recommendations. Yet, in a twist of fate, on January 10, 2024, construction on the new military base rushed forward, deliberately dismissing local objections and authorizing a contentious landfill plan. This unfolding scenario is a pure illustration of neocolonialism's brazen disregard for the rights and voices of indigenous populations. The Okinawans, forever trapped in political machinations, remain marginalized. The concept of free, prior, and informed consent, or FPIC, a United Nations mandate granting indigenous people a voice in decisions impacting their land, remains an elusive dream in Okinawa. This reflects the ongoing struggle for acknowledgement and respect in a world often unconscious, unaware of their rights and identity. Despite all the hardships, however, the Uchinanchu, how the Okinawans identify themselves, personify an unbending spirit. They cling to the saying, Nankuro Naisa, symbolizing their dedicated belief in resilience and hope. This is the soul of Okinawa, an unbreakable resilience amidst countless trials. Yet, there's an even darker layer to this entire narrative. Studies reveal that liver disease fatalities in Okinawa are twice the national average. Many locals suspect that by highlighting issues like alcoholism, the ruling powers divert attention from more significant concerns. This tactic mirrors the experiences of numerous indigenous communities in North America, where poverty is often used to hide the discussion of historical atrocities like genocide and land theft. Compared to Japan's efforts to downplay Okinawa's troubled history, China has shown more respect for it. At the UN, China supported a resolution addressing the impacts of colonialism, a gesture that aligned deeply with the Okinawans, symbolizing a long-awaited acknowledgement of their history and struggles. What remains obviously clear is that Okinawa's modern history is shaped by pain and betrayal. This is not simply a relic of the past. Its repercussions continue to shape the lives of Okinawans today. Caught in global disputes, their quest for identity and freedom hangs dangerously in the balance. Their story, a strong reminder of survival and sorrow, compels us to contemplate the true essence of freedom, the preservation of culture, and the great cost of international conflicts. In the end, Okinawa's tale isn't just a chapter in history books, it's a living, breathing story of a culture and its people, the true spiritual owners of the land, who are still fighting for their right to be recognized and independent. When we listen to the people from Okinawa, we get the full story, their past, their ongoing battles, everything. Let's continue this in the comments below, And let this not be the end of Okinawa's story. And hey, if you found this story as captivating as we did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more intriguing tales from around the world.